Hello, everyone. We are back to another Fireside Chat. This is Fireside Chat number 17, right? So, who knew that we would record so many of those things, right? So, I think we're having a good time, and I'm very happy to see the reaction that you're getting from people as well. So, thank you very much for all of you that are following our chats, that subscribe to the channel, are leaving your comments, or even reaching out to us like in private and asking for topics and stuff. So, thank you very much for everyone that is following us. And so, if you are new to these chats, basically what we do normally, we sit down, the three of us, we have a drink, and we pick a topic that is that we are interested to discuss, and we don't do any prep. We just like have a brief conversation, pick a topic, press the rec button, and start talking about it. So you see a lot of half-baked ideas and just like brainstorming ideas. So I hope you like it. So today we picked a topic that is a problem that many companies are facing, including ourselves, right? Is how can we grow our development teams, how we hire software professionals sustainably. As we all know, like we have a shortage apparently across the entire world. Every company that we speak to, they are saying, hey, we want to hire, we are hiring, and by the way, we are also hiring. So so how can we do that when there is such a shortage? So how does it change the recruitment process? What are the trade-offs? So if you're changing the recruitment process, you are maybe I don't know, softening certain areas or becoming more specific, or how can we bring more people in but do that sustainably? So that is the question given the current context. So guys, how do we deal with that in general?
Jose, do you want to start or shall I?
Go.
Okay, so I'll kind of slightly broaden the topic. So it's not just about bringing the people in. Of course, that's a major part of it, especially if you're growing. You're not just gonna grow with just the people you have. So it's also about retention. So as you're bringing people in, you need to be able to keep them. And related to that is also progression. That if you're at different levels when you are bringing people in, it is, I guess, a kind of a natural demographic in our industry. There are more junior people and there are less senior, and it's easier to hire a more junior. So how you kind of build them up to and progress them, so that you're creating the right kind of shape in your company as well. So I think it's a bit of everything. It's so we can maybe start with the hiring part, and I'll start with just one thing. It's about the first thing is to hire the right people, and be able to, what we call, increase the number of people or number of suitable people coming in, increase the kind of top of the funnel. If you think of it as a kind of a process of elimination in terms of people who are suitable and who you are suitable for. So how do you increase the funnel? So I think maybe we constrain the first discussion around how do you actually hire more, right, at the different levels. I don't know, Jose, what do you think?
I think I will go before that to some extent, right? Because it answers your question. So how do you get more people interested in your company? And I think this is very much related on the current state of the industry for this stuff. Now, like if you look back a couple of years, you could by pay more, right, or having perks, or having, like, you could make your organization more attractive, to some extent, to certain type of candidates, right? But in recent times, there's many other things that also make it attractive, like the culture and so on. Like there's plenty of other areas that you can touch on, but usually if you had money, you create a nice environment, and you put the honey, and then people come, right? Now, what has happened, I think, that has disrupted this a lot is on one side that has become a very competitive kind of arena. So if you're not one of those companies that has deep pockets, no, what can you do, right? And on the other side, with the whole COVID and remote and all of these changes that we've been living through in the past 2 years, what has happened, I think, is that people are not constrained anymore by what they have available locally, right? So before, if you're in Barcelona, if you're in London or whatever, like you have access to specific companies that are kind of located around you. But now that's not the case. You could be living in Asturias, right, in a little town somewhere. As long as you have good internet, you could be working for any of the FANG, no, or you could be basically, especially in technology, working anywhere, right? And this is, I think, quite important, right? It's like, because it is about, again, creating a space where people do want to work in, and one of those things is people want quality of life, no, and they want the whole I live at work, no, and I get up and it's dark, and I go back and it's dark again, and I waste 3 hours in the tube every day, or stuff like that. Is they're trying to move away from that, right? So I feel like that's one of the areas. So addressing what those needs are and how those things are changing for the current market is essential, right? So we're talking about things like remote. We're talking about things like work-life balance, no, in many areas. We're talking about things like development, no, and how do you progress, no, in your career, and those are some of the smaller ones that you can kind of start either promoting or at least consider inside your offering, no, when you're trying to bring people in. I don't know what you think.
So I think that remote is certainly here to stay. I think that the pandemic just accelerated a trend that was already coming. And but like as we discussed a few times ourselves, and I've been thinking about it, it seems that every time that at least every time I think on a solution, it comes with more problems. So I don't have, of course, we don't have that solution ourselves. If we had the solution, we would be very happy right now. But like, for example, the question was increasing the funnel, right? One of the things that you were mentioning is like, well, let's go beyond our current geographical areas, right? Before, for example, this was true for us, and it was true for most of our clients and the companies that we know. You would hire within your geographical area, right? Because you expect the people to come to the office. So with the shortage and with people's preferences, not only on the shortage of people, but in our industry, which is a problem, but also the preference for the type of work changed as well for all those professionals, right? So people are now, they want at least some flexibility. So then what most companies did, including ourselves, well, you remove that constraint. You don't need to be at a commuting distance from an office. You can work remote. But that created a different problem, because as soon as we open to remote, and most companies are working opening to remote, you open to global competition. So now people can work for many different countries and different companies, and that before would not be possible. So reaching out to those companies becomes harder. Another problem that comes, before was already very difficult to create a culture, a company culture. Even when we were co-located, it was not easy to create that. And every
Especially
company,
for a consultancy, yeah.
For a consultancy is even worse, because like our people are always working with clients, right? So, but even for product companies, they had to put already a lot of effort into create a culture. And now with remote work, so you solve a problem in terms of opening up the funnel, but you create problems that were already difficult to solve, and now they become even worse, right? So those are just a few things that, as I said, like, it seems that every time we try to do one thing, we create other problems. And that's why the topic was like, how can we grow but sustainably? So, okay, we open for remote, great. How do we deal with all those other problems?
I'd argue that the problem was already there. Whether we open for remote or not, the problem is there. The market is open for remote, so we need to be right. So companies, especially in the tech industry, that do not open for remote work or do not hire for fully remote contracts, or hire on fully remote contracts rather. They are they're kind of, they will struggle. This it's a necessity, right? But that doesn't mean that everyone wants to be remote. And right now, like the way that our contracts are structured, we have fully remote contracts, and we have contracts that we call hybrid. So they're not fully in office contracts either, where we are quite flexible. It's a flexible way of working where you may be very close to an office and you come to the office as and when you need or you wish, right? Because a lot of people still want that. A lot of people want to be able to come to the office for many different reasons. They may not have the right setup at home, or they need a break, or as you said, in person meeting your colleagues is a very different thing, and they want to do that often. I mean, I myself go to the office once or twice a week, right? And not because I need to, but because I want to, and I find it very pleasant to see my colleagues. So you need to provide that flexibility. I think that's one thing. So otherwise, you are gonna fall behind in your competition. But then, as you said, that's not the only thing you need to do. Then you need to look at, well, how do you create a vibrant culture even when people are remote, right? And this is something that's very difficult. So we can talk about a bunch of things. One is about culture. One is about making sure that we are working effectively as well, right? So when I talk about vibrant culture, it's about identity. I belong to this company, and the way you kind of create that identity is by people. You identify with the other people that you're working with. So I think there is a challenge there, and maybe I'll present that as a challenge to yourselves. In how do you create that identity now in this world where some people would never come to the office and others may come to the office once in a while, right?
One thing that I'm seeing though is that initially you proposed to go, from top of the funnel to bottom, and that's kind of like in the middle. Like once someone is in there, how do you keep them? How do you retain them, and so on? So maybe we could park that, and when we get to that point, we can address it. Because otherwise, we'll be jumping around a little bit.
Yeah. So we talked about the contracts and making the contracts better but what else can you do to increase that kind of top of the funnel as it were?
Well, there is a thing which is providing visibility about what it is to be working at whatever company you're in, right? Like, and this is, I think, extremely important, especially for smaller companies. Yeah, because again, not everyone. You think of a Google or even SAP or any other multinational thing. Like they're very well known brands, and you can kind of figure out what it is. There's something associated with the brand itself. No, but let's say a company like us, where maybe we're known in a specific area, like craftsmanship or XP, and that kind of world may not necessarily be something that people outside that word know about, right? So spending, but putting the effort into getting that part of your culture to be known by people that are not inside, they're not inside the scope of where you normally would work, I think is essential, right? And you can do that in many different ways, right? Like you can collaborate with communities. You can send people to give talks at events. You can, there's plenty of actions, no, that you can put in place. But I would say that the key for all of those things to be successful is that, one, you do have a culture that people want to work in, no, and two, you have people who are representatives of that culture and they have great communicative skills and so on, be the ones that are the ambassadors for your brand and be the ones representing, the company. So I always, when we talk internally about this, I always say that everyone is representing, Codurance. Like every interaction that you have, you are representing the company. Doesn't matter what responsibility you have. People are look at you and they will see also Codurance. They will see you, of course, right? And a lot of people want to work with you. This is also important, no? But you are to some extent representing the company, and that shows, no? So picking those ambassadors and making sure that they're, showing what it is. This is not about putting up a front. That's the worst thing that you can do, because people see through that, right?
Or when they join, they'll find out.
And exactly.
So we have here opening up for, be open to remote work. That's one way. We also talked about putting more effort into the employer branding, right? So make sure that companies start exposing more how they work, who they are. Their internal culture basically is another way. So to make their company more well known within the development cycles. So those were the two things that we mentioned. There is another one. I don't have hard data on this. I just have my own perception, right? But software developers or software professionals have always been in high demand. That's what we were just briefly mentioning before we start recording, right? So they've always been in high demand, but I feel that it became worse now. I think that there is far more demand for the amount of software engineers or software professionals in general in the market. I don't know if it's because the market became more global, but that's the impression that I have. And now there is an elephant in the room here, right? So every company that I see, they are hiring more developers, including ours, or software professionals, not developers, software professionals in general. So then before, I felt that companies were more specific in terms of what they were looking for. We need a professional with these skills. And they would interview a few people, and then, of course, it was not easy, but they would go for what they really wanted. I felt now that all companies are becoming more flexible. So like, instead of saying, like, I'm going to really, really look for what I want, you know what? Let me broaden up a little bit more and bring some people in that is reasonably around that shape, so that I can attract more people, because the competition is higher, the demand is higher. So the elephant in the room that we hear in a lot places is like, should companies lower the bar? Should companies now say, you know what, instead of being very picky, let's try to look for different type of skills instead of specific skills. Maybe they say, I will favor like behavior or attitude, but then open up the funnel, right? Because that was the discussion, right? We were talking about the funnel in attracting people to organizations. So being more wide in your search, so that they can attract more. But then that sounds a good idea in general, to be more look for more of a diverse set of skills, right? But you might create a different problem as well if you widen too much, or if you relax certain things, or if you. I don't like to use the term lowering the bar. I deliberately trying to avoid the lowering the bar, because that's not what I believe that companies are doing. I think that they are.
They're trying to solve a problem, and I think
they're trying to solve a problem, and they are exchanging the skills. They are saying, you know what, let's try to see which skills we can probably teach them when they come in, and skills that we might not be able. But then you create a problem, because if you bring those people in, you need to teach them. That's what I wanted to push out to you
Yeah,
guys.
I just to add on that, and I think I sort of alluded to that before when I said it had become a very competitive market, and I think one of the consequences of that is that the expectation of candidates have also gone up a lot for many reasons, right? Like you have agencies, bumping up the numbers, etc. But in general, you now find people who maybe are at an entry level in the industry, and they are going for salaries of maybe someone with 5 years of experience would be getting access to, no, or things like this, a couple of years back. I'm not saying that's not the so what the problem with that is that it has become unsustainable. You can no longer pay what the market is asking for what you want it, no. So what you if you're filtering at this level and people are coming with this expectations, then it's really hard. How many times can you do that? Yeah. Not only that, sometimes people are coming at this level, but they're not even at the what you require. They are below, right? So that quickly becomes unsustainable for organizations in general. So there is a need to find a different approach to it. And I think what you mentioned, Sandro, where you're kind of, you already know that you're not going to find exactly what you need at the cost, no, or at the investment that you want to have, but you're then looking at, can I bridge that gap, right? Like, can this be an investment, and then I can hire at a different I can hire at a different investment or a different cost, no, invest in people to grow them to where I need to, and sort of like get a little bit outside of what the market, no, what the trend in the market is, which is definitely not something that you can compete in.
I mean, I'd like to think that we had these problems from the moment we started Codurance. We started Codurance in the middle of the city of London, right? And always we were surrounded by investment banks who had very deep pockets and could completely outmatch us on salaries, right? Now, I would personally say that everyone optimizes in certain ways. Companies that have a lot of money uh, will, or don't have a lot else to offer, yeah, would compete on price, would compete on salaries. One thing I would say is that it's I would take the example of a football club that has a shitloads of money can bring in all the talent they like. What normally happens, all that talent would not be able to create the success. And not just that, they will destroy that talent in some way as well. They will not, I mean, destroy is maybe a wrong word, but they will stifle their talent because of the culture and all those, the very fact that they are competing on this particular area. And I would forward a word of caution to people who are also looking at that in particular, right? Is that it is easy to go to right now to a recruitment agent, and they might tell you, and they would be right, I can get you a job for 20, 30, 40% even more than what you are expecting. But just be careful on the companies that are competing at that level. And we've had to compete in that kind of market for a long time, right? And so I think companies that are, those will always be an issue. Okay, yes, granted, it's a bigger issue right now, but I don't think we should be scared of that, because that part, we're talking about sustainability, that thing is not sustainable. People go there, either they get stagnated or they see the culture and they move on, right?
Yeah,
And
it's true, but I still have a problem today that I need to solve. And again, it's something that a lot of companies have already started recognizing, and they've started, if we're moving down the funnel now into relaxing maybe some of the criteria for entry and mitigating what the kind of problems that would create for you, right? A lot of companies are going for things like creating your own academy or boot camp or so on, right? Like you have people like Sara, I think, recently launched one. You have Voxel Group. You have a bunch of companies are doing that, or they were already doing that. Like, for instance, Codurance has been doing this since the beginning for a different reason, no? But the approach now is this has become, a very strategic part of, growing and continuing to develop the business. Right?
I would argue that always was. Companies that didn't do this were, they were not really in any sustainable, and they suffered from it even before, right? And I think of course, it's, but this is in this particular case, the solution to the problem that we are facing is actually a good one. It's not that we are making a compromise. And I think Sandro said earlier as well, right, that we don't like to think of it as lowering the bar, because actually when we are really custom fitting the role at the very detail to the kind of the job offer, right? To say, this person have X number of experience, years of experience in Java. I mean, we've even had like particular libraries and those kind of things as well. Now, those are the things that are not important. The important aspects have always been the attitude, the communication skills, the things that we call softer skills, right? They've always been the more important ones, and other things can be taught. It's just that certain companies never even bother to teach any of it, right?
I would add. Sorry.
Go on.
No, go on.
No, I would add that when you tailor the job now to this is what I need, and this is what you're looking for in the market, versus what we're discussing now, where you're relaxing a bit more and then growing people internally. I think that's even good for the industry. Instead of lowering the bar, where you're actually contributing to bring more people into the industry that will grow, and in a year, in a couple of years' time, they will be able to offer even more.
Exactly, with the right, they have the right foundations, and it's actually in a way taking out some of the things out of our industry that were never really that good anyway. The cult of the specialist and the hero programmer and all those kind of things. It's taking a lot of that out. It's as we start concentrating on skills around teamwork, effectiveness, communication, these kind of things, right?
Yeah, because I'm struggling to see even a different approach, because, like, again, I don't have hard numbers here, but it's just a general perception. We've been in the industry for a very long time, and we deal with companies in many different countries as well, and it seems quite well, the problems that they describe are the same. So it seems that there is a shortage. There is far more demand today than there was before. So even if you play the money game, you try to offer more and more money, like, someone will need to win that game at some point, and then most people will lose that game. But the shortage is still there. It's not, you lost that professional, but it's not that you're going to get the next one. There's no professional. So there's not enough people to satisfy all the demands. And the companies, they need to keep trading, and they need to keep evolving their systems. So I don't see another alternative than actually growing more people. But then this changes the as you were saying before, it changes the company's perspective on software developers. Before, some of them took a long time to accept that maybe accept is too much of a strong word, but to understand that their technology department was a strategic department, right? It was not just a cost center. So this took a long time for them for a lot of companies to realize. And most companies today already realize that, but now it goes to the next level. It's not only a strategic department, it's a department that they need to nurture and grow, right? They need to start investing. So the investment is not only now, we need to hire a few talented people and always make sure that we are replenishing, like, so as people leave the company, we hire more tech. No, the strategy becomes even more long-term now. And the investment becomes even bigger now and more strategic than anything else. Because if they want to start growing those people with maybe not with the exact experience that they want, but with the potential, that will take a few years to materialize. And that's a lot of investment, and that changes how they see their department.
Before we continue down the funnel, I'm gonna throw in a question that I know a lot of, it's people have been talking about this a bit, which is with the advent of all these boot camps and let's say academies and so on that are trying to provide you know the offer, no, to that demand. A lot of people who maybe studied computer science or they went and got their degree and stuff like that. There's been a discussion around whether this is, they're intruding now, because you get people who have maybe very tactical knowledge of a framework of a language, etc. But some of the other things that you would study when you study computer science of software engineering or whatever, they're kind of lacking in, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Let's not go. This is a fireside talk on its own, but let's do it briefly because it is a
Briefly,
question that everybody will ask, right?
Right.
I mean, I
because
can start,
we're
Sandro,
talking
if
about
you-
bringing people in with less, with less experience. A lot of these people maybe
Sure.
They changed professions, right? They were really they were seniors in a different field or whatever, and they decided that it was a good time to do that change, right? So there's a lot of value in transferable skills in many of these people that are joining. They just don't have the experience on the technical side, right? So what do you think?
I don't know, Mesh. Do you want to go first? Do you want me? I have a lot of opinions on this topic.
Well, I can briefly express mine and then give
All
you.
right, go on then. Go on then.
And then let the other half an hour, no?
So, right, one thing I would like to say is that, I mean, I have 2 degrees in computer science, and I think it's a very small fraction of that I would say in terms of the technical skills that I use. Yes, the way of learning and so on was really important, and I'm glad I did those, but I don't think the degree is important. And I don't think people with degrees should feel that they are being encroached upon by other people. Like, just because you have a degree does not give you the right to be the gatekeeper of the industry, right? So that's my kind of first opinion. In terms of a someone doing a boot camp, it completely depends on who it is. And now we were just talking about all those different kind of skills that are not related to tech skills. Even in our own skills kind of disciplines that we look for, we have 5 that are non-technical and 1 that is technical mastery, right? So, and a lot of the technical stuff can be taught rather. Yes, there are a lot of skills involved in the technical arena, and yes, it does take time. But actually, that's the thing where you can manage, and you can manage the progression much easier than certain other skills, right? So to kind of briefly answer your question, I think boot camps and these kind of things, they do serve an important function. People that come out of this, they are, in my view, and this is probably controversial, they're not ready yet for the for kind of driving without a kind of an instructor, right? However, they are a good source of people to have in teams, as depending on, again, it totally depends on what else they were doing before that, right? I'm talking kind of just purely from a technical skills point of view. If you have a good team around them, if you have good mentors and so on, and as Sandro was saying, you do have a good plan to grow them over more than a year. We've had 1 or 2 people from boot camps, and we always keep an eye out, and everywhere where but one thing we have found is that people coming from boot camps, if they don't have any commercial experience already, they need at least 1 year, if not more, of very strong kind of mentorship and supervision for them to kind of start working independently at the level that we and our clients are expecting us. But we are a consultancy. There are higher expectations on us than other companies, like certain product companies and larger kind of organizations.
Okay, so my turn now. So how much time do we have?
Take as long as you like. I'm done.
Don't say that because people will be bored. But okay, I'll try to be as brief as I can be in such an important topic. So I would like to start saying that we have a shortage in our industry. And for me, any initiative that helps people to come into our industry and contribute to our industry is welcome. I want to be very, very clear with that. I don't think that universities should be the only way to break into our industry. And like Mash, I also came from a very traditional background. I studied computer science and I have a master's degree in distributed objects. So I came through a very academic path to join our industry. And knowing what I know today, I'm not sure if I would have gone through the same path. Knowing what I know today and the current state of technology today, where you can just Google for whatever you want to learn, and you have plenty of free material or very cheap material to learn, I'm not sure if I would spend or invest like so many years and so much money of my life to start into the industry. I probably would. I like the idea of accelerating the path to join our industry. So in general, I see bootcamps as a very, very good thing and play a fantastic role in our industry. I want to make it very clear before I start saying other things. So now it comes to the exactly is how ready those people are. And so, for example, what we see, a lot of those people are changing careers, right? Which means that a 3 months training. So, like, I think that we should all understand that, like, for someone changing careers and going through a 3 months intensive boot camp, they will have the initial foundation, but that's most often than not enough for them to drive without an instructor next to them, as Mashooq was saying, using the same analogy. And but to be fair, there are also different types of companies. So I think that the boot camps should have more of those, because we need more people and we need more diverse people in terms of skills and what they want to do and how they work and how they think. And there are different types of companies that might need them. So for example, if you have a product company with very well established domains, right? So established teams and stuff, you need to expand your group. Companies that are more stable in their business environment, the pace is more steady, is more stable, the pace that they deliver things. They have enough people in the organization that know the systems well, the domain well and stuff. Those are great companies to onboard people coming from bootcamp, because they can provide a very safe space for those people to come in. Safe not only for the people, for the company as well. So they can bring in people that are not fully ready yet, but it's easier to create the space to nurture those people on the job. Yeah, that you can a team of 7 or a team of 8 can absorb 1 or 2 people coming from bootcamp. See where I'm coming from? In a stable, mainly in product companies. If you are a service company like us, where our clients are paying for the expertise of our consultants, those people will be too far away from being in front of a client on their own and representing the company. So for us onboarding those people, the investment on them would be far longer for them to be able to provide the service that we expect than they would be for a product. And this would be the same for a very fast-paced industry, or an industry that needs highly skilled engineer, people in research, or like the front office of a bank. Take an investment bank, take the front office of a bank. It's like non-stop traders in your neck and breathing, her, where's the next report? I need this data combination and the quantum, this and that. And so depends on the kind of skills that you expect. You need to be realistic of which kind of person you need to have in everywhere. But like, are they a good source of people that you can nurture in a safe space? Absolutely, it's valid, but they need to be placed in a company, in an environment where they can succeed, and the company could have their return on investment in nurturing them. So
I think it's like, it's that at level at which point they can start contributing positively, right? In a team, as you said, in a team of a larger team, they can almost start contributing immediately. In teams like ours, I mean, we found, right, we've tried those experiments. It takes years, uh, because of because we need to build those people up, and often we will, if we know that someone is at not the minimum level that we need and our clients expect, we, even if we try to bring them into a team with our client, the client rightfully asks, like, okay, your people are spending time, uh, kind of training up your other people in my project.
Yeah, with
And
my
I
money.
know this is very short-sighted, but it's a question they ask, and we have to provide an answer to that, right? And this is, if some clients are actually, they are open to it, but unfortunately, most are not.
Yeah. But I think that this is a good segue. Sorry, maybe like for us, like instead of like, for example, inevitably, regardless of the type of company and the type of people, because we also need to grow companies that are fast paced, consultancies, product companies, every company, they need to bring people in and nurture them. They might have different needs, and the way that they nurture is different, but like the problem persists. So maybe it would be good to see like what are good ways to do that. So how do we nurture those people? Okay, it's great, we need to train them, but like we send a 2-day training course and that's enough. So how does that work?
Just to add something else before we go into that. Sorry, Sandro, because I know we can continue moving, and it's time already. Just one last thing is, I think that this is going to be an unpopular opinion. Yeah, so the
Go
ones
on
that
then.
I like to.
Go
Yeah,
on
but
Yeah.
you risk
Make it very unpopular. Now that you've created expectation,
exactly.
make
Now that
it
you're
very
creating
unpopular.
expectations,
give
no.
that small sentence that people can tweet about and say, "Oh, look what he said."
Exactly.
Right?
He said exactly.
Yeah.
So I do believe that because of the current context and the things that I was explaining before, where the strategies to get people in were all about extrinsic motivators and what can I give you, and what can you give me, what do you offer, that kind of stuff, right? I feel like especially people who come into the industry quite recently, they've been spoiled. They've been spoiled. They have no point of comparison, to what it could be, or it has been, or it is in some places, right? Now less because of the things that we mentioned, but it is. Now, this is something that is very particular to the tech industry. So when you get people coming from other industries where this is not the norm, yeah, going into the tech industry, I feel like there is that reference point. There is that comparison of how good we have it, so to speak, and they tend to value a lot more the opportunities and the things that are available to them. And we've seen this. We had people that joined through the academy, for instance. They were coming from being a freelancer, setting up audio installations, or sound technician, yeah, having to really like work under the clock and a lot of pressure and a lot of and they've told us, no, like this is one of the easiest gigs that I've had in my life. It's like, it's okay, I just I learn, I apply, nobody's screaming at you, nobody there are all of these things that I was exposed to that give me a frame of reference from which to evaluate what we have. And I feel like that is a good thing. In my opinion, that is a good thing, whether you like it or not, whether you like to be called spoiled or not. I'm not saying everyone, but this is what I see a lot, right? So now we can move on into the okay. So how do you mitigate those risks? No, and you're bringing people into your organization that maybe are not at the required level. Like, what are the things that you can put in place? Well, you can have, of course, an academy, right? But the whole point of these things is usually to deliver content, no, or to deliver knowledge. But that does not create the the skill or the proficiency in what you have. So for me, there is an aspect of accompanying that person throughout that process and making sure that it's receiving a great feedback, because this is one of the things that I feel like essential. If you want to improve fast, you can do it on your own, and it will take you a very long time if you're hitting the same rock. But if you have someone who's been through it, that is able to pinpoint, hey, maybe doing this thing differently, try this next time and see, how that works, because this is, do you notice how this is affecting this and that, right? That idea of having great feedback and having a culture that generate that, because a lot of the time people think of mentorship programs, no, and now you're going to get someone assigned to you, and that person's going to be, but the reality is you want to be getting great feedback from everyone. If you're able to create a culture where peers are helping each other grow and are teaching each other, and they there's no there's no arrogance around these things, I feel like that's the best environment you can have to help people in this endeavor, no?
Right.
So those are things. So you have the content delivery and the culture, the feedback culture. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that when you talk about peer, we talk about different seniority levels and communities of practice and that kind of stuff, right? Where you do have the opportunity to work with people that are at different experiences and different expertise than you, and so that you can learn both from a seniority and also diversity, right? So that's definitely one thing. Do you mean content by certain kind of training and framework of training that is that you can plug
like
yourself
knowledge
into?
delivery? No, it's like, hey, you want to learn, I don't know, TDD, red ring refactor, and you do the kata and you do this, but then that doesn't really translate directly into you having the skill to do it on the job, right? Like you learn the vocabulary, you learn the thought process, you learn a lot of things. It's not like it's useless, but then you need the practice. And not only you need the practice, you need the experience, you also need the feedback in order to be able to go through that cycle of learning, right? Or I tried this and I learned from that, and
but that's what I was going to say as well, is that there is certain something that you can do yourself in order for you to put yourself in positions where you gather these different experiences, but also the company needs to support you as well in it cannot all be left to you because you are working under certain constraints as an employee. The company also needs to keep a very active view on what kind of experiences you need, and I think the both need to combine, because of course the company also works under constraints on what kind of experiences they can give you, right?
Yeah, and I remember that, for example, when we were in previous companies before Codurance, Mesh and I worked for investment banks and even other consultants. The way that those things were done, we had the how can I say, the companies allowed us to do certain things, to create the community of practices, or to do some lunch and learns. They allowed us to use some time, company time, to do some knowledge share among ourselves. But that was not done by the organization. The organization said, like, if you guys want to spend a couple of hours here and there giving talks to each other or coding in a room, fine, we are happy with that. But there was no structure from the company. And I feel nowadays that this is not enough, because this relies on very specific individuals that had the energy to actually run those sessions or organize those internal events or share their knowledge. But as those individuals decided to move on, or they lost steam, like, so they were busy with projects or whatever, those things were not happening, and they end up dying, right? So I feel that given the current market, just relying on the individuals and doing that organically is not enough anymore. It's not enough for us, and it's not enough for any of our clients. Like, we had conversations today with a very large organization. We have 2 of our existing clients asking for a very similar thing, where they're creating a formal process. Like, so things that is part of the organization. The organization is creating a structure in order to nurture their own people. And we have other companies that we are aware of, that we know. You mentioned 2 of them, Jose, early on in this episode, that are also investing in their, and this, it will need to happen. We cannot just rely on people. It will need to be part of the company strategy to keep
It needs to be
evolving.
a system. No, it's something that is intentional. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Deliberately designed, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I would say that because we were mentioning, communities of practice and all these, let's say, learning um, systems or knowledge sharing systems, and there is a lot that has been researched about this, right? It doesn't need to be something that just happens organically, and someone wants to do a lunch and learn, and so you can design this, right? But you need to know what you're doing. So if someone wants to look things up, I think there's a guy. I don't know if it's a guy or someone called Etienne Wagner, I think, or Wagner, who's been doing a lot of research on this topic as well. So if you are kind of like looking into this is something that you could check out if you want some guidance on that. Now there is other aspects of it. We mentioned the academy. We mentioned the kind of feedback, so that people can learn and so on. And you brought out the point where certain clients are asking us things, and in particular in technical areas, there is this role of the technical coach. Yeah, and I feel like coaching, technically, if you're a tech company, is something that you will definitely benefit from. No, however, it's something that requires a specific kind of people. Yeah, it's not just being good technically. That's one aspect, but you also need to have that soft skill kind of area, and the knowledge around how to help people through that journey, and that is something that is also worth investing in. So recognizing talent within the organization with those characteristics, and nurturing that. No, we talked about giving people opportunities to practice and so on, is I think also essential, right? So if you have that person who's naturally good at sitting down with someone, helping them out, and learning or sharing knowledge and so on, they have good people skills, that is probably a missed opportunity if you're not encouraging that and providing the support that requires. Because what these people do is they multiply. Yeah, they turn whatever it is that your team is being able to do right now, and they can, there's the 10x programmer. This is like 100 or 1,000, right? Because it's really that powerful when it's done properly, right? So I feel like that's another aspect that you can do in order to do that.
There is another element as well, and it's very prevalent in XP and software craftsmanship and so on. It's actually, so one kind of working together as a team, things like pair programming, mob programming, all those kind of things as well, but a very kind of a whole team attitude, and an attitude of teaching and learning, right? This community that comes from, like, we came out of the software craftsmanship community, and we take it for granted that we're always very happy to help someone else next to us, and creating that kind of culture within your teams, where we kind of live in some kind of a bubble as well, because we take it for granted that people are, they are very eager to pair program, to mob program. They're very eager to help each other, to participate in communities of practice and those kind of things. But this culture has to be nurtured. This kind of thing has to be encouraged, so that people can actually learn from each other. And as you talked about, they are coaching each other, so it's not just one coach coming in and maybe helping out. And of course that's important, and even running certain types of training courses. But the team learning from each other is a very important aspect, I think.
Yeah, this is where I find the balance very difficult. And for example, we've been speaking to organizations in the past few months, and, I'm finding it amazing every time I speak to their CTOs or head of engineering and it's like how many times in the past this year mainly, like the companies saying, "Oh, we grew massively during the pandemic." But people saying, like, for example, doubling in size every year and going from tens to 1,000 in a matter of a very few years, right? So, and it's amazing that those companies are able to do that. We are growing not at that ratio, but we are also growing significantly. And then that's what we were saying at the beginning. Like companies need to grow. They have to cope with the demand, their work that they need to do and stuff. But that growth creates problems as well. And I think that if you align, people need to be more strategic in order to attract more people, but also to make sure that they don't create a much bigger problem, right, internally as they bring it. And those things, they'll need to be done by design, as we were saying before. I think that this is one thing that this is a problem that we need to solve, and problems that other companies have much bigger than us because they already did the growth.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have all those people that joined them. And they need to create a sense of identity, first of all, because you brought all those people in, but you need to retain them. And that return on investment, let's say, so those people will take some time to adapt, to learn the organization, and to be efficient, right? So to start working and provide that return, let's say. So they need to make sure that return happens and those people stay with them and they become part of the culture. So they need to create the identity and give the skills. And this is quite difficult when you try to retrofit, right? So for a lot of companies, and this is advice that we need to give and listen ourselves, is like, make sure that as we are growing, we are also thinking about that as well. As we are bringing those people in, we have a way to integrate them well, both culturally and with the right skills.
Yeah, don't go on a hiring spree and then say, "Oh, what do I do with this now?"
Oops, I did it again. No, this is a good start. Entry point to the topic that we parked before, right? Matt, you were saying, in this remote first
Hybrid
situation, or hybrid kind of approach. How do you make sure that things like what we're talking about, this culture of feedback, of learning, and that identity, that camaraderie, you're able to sustain, not only create but sustain through time in an environment where people continue with their lives, right? Some people we've had it, people that were in London or Barcelona and decide, okay, I'm going to move out, or I'm going to go back to my hometown with my family because I can do what I'm doing from there, and I'll be with the people that I want, also around me, that I have to say no to in order to get access to a different thing, right? So all of those barriers are going away. We're all now kind of like at the same distance, so to speak. What are the things that can be done in order to create or sustain that culture or that unity?
That's a big question, Jose, right? When we have 1 minute to go, hey?
I think normally we take all the way to 10, but 10 after. But
I
We
mean,
could, if you want, we could do a fireside just on keeping a culture and remote. That could be a good.
Could
I think
create
that
an
would be a
identity. Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
could be a
exactly.
good
Because
topic on its own. Yeah.
because yeah, because
yeah,
I feel that like answering this question, creating an identity will also vary from context as well. I think that there are potentially there might be some things that you can do that are similar across organizations, but I think that the type of organization that you have may also limit or constrain you in what you can do to create that identity, or the things that you choose to create an identity around might differ depending on which kind of organization you have.
yeah. And the culture is a slightly different thing, although they are quite intertwined. Like in a way, you kind of peg the culture on the identity. But the cultures that we are trying to promote, especially when we are talking about people and their development, and we're talking about uh, advocacy, right? Kind of this ambassadorship and so on, these kind of things. I think all these things are very important, but it would take us a while to
Yeah,
discuss. And yes, they do differ. I mean, we can talk about our own and what we are trying to do. But
yeah,
again, we are a software services company, right? So there are certain problems that we have that others don't, and certain benefits that we have that others don't.
yeah. So in order to wrap up, like I'll ask a different question today. So, what are your? Is there any takeaways from you guys, given the conversation we had?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that growing sustainably is about putting these processes and these systems in place to grow your people before you go on that hiring spree, right? That's one big takeaway for me. I think that you need to look at these things in a kind of a holistic way, and not just open the funnel up at the top, right? You need to look at retention. You look at people development, coaching, mentoring. You need to look at the culture of the organization. All these things have to kind of prepare for growth, even if you sort out the problem of actually hiring, sort the problem of hiring more, or hiring what you think you need.
Yeah, Jose.
There's one thing that we kind of mentioned in passing, and I feel like it has a lot more weight than we actually kind of gave it, which is when you're going to is the importance of selecting based on attitude and cultural fit. And by this, I don't mean there shouldn't be any, again, diversity or variety and so on, which is how people tend to think about this. And it's like, no, you're hiring people that are exactly like you. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm talking about people who share those values of the culture that you are trying to, independently of what background or race or skin color, whatever, right? Things like the learning aspect, no, or that drive for improvement. Things like empathy and actually caring for people. Things like just feedback and being good people in general. So all of those things, I think, trump. Yeah, of course, this is the kind of culture that we are creating now, and
Mhm.
this is why I'm referring to them. But whatever it is, the culture that you are trying to create, having people join the organization who are sharing and are aligned with those values for real is extremely important. And having people uh, intervene in that process, yeah, this is another thing that we didn't discuss, but having people intervene in a process that actually represent those values and that can act as a they can recognize those things in candidates as well is extremely important. The worst thing that can happen is that you hire a new HR recruitment person because they glowing reference and so on. You give them a spec of these are the things that we need. go and find, and they will get what you ask them. But there's this aspect of culture and so on that person may not even have, because they just joined the company, or because they don't know, they're not able, the values is not as easy to see, no? Like, it's not you're talking about behaviors and things that drive those behaviors, no? So I think that is a massive thing that should not be overlooked. You can put a lot of these things in place if you have the right foundation. But if you have a crappy foundation, it doesn't matter how much investment you put in, and how much time you dedicate, and how much support you give people. There's nothing can grow in that soil, right? So I think that would be part of my takeaway.
Yeah, it's similar to mine as well. So I think that one thing is like we will need to, given the shortage that we have, global competition, remote work. I think that not only us but most companies will need to be more flexible in what they are looking for, instead of just aiming for a very precise kind of skill set or type of people or type of person. We need to relax that a little bit more, and that is different from lowering the bar. We are looking, what we do, instead of like looking for all the skills, a ready-made person to start working next day with everything that you need. We need to start look more and more for potential, and put far more effort in growing those people, getting the right cultural fit, as you were saying, Jose, and the potential, and then create programs internally to grow and nurture those people, and integrating them into the company, both culturally and with the skills necessary as well. And this will become more and more important, until I don't think we ever will have like we'll solve the shortage issue in our industry. I think that the demand, as Mash said, it's been a trend. It's just becoming worse and worse. I think we have far more demand than supply. And that's why it becomes far more important for us to
one thing that I would say on what you mentioned is, like, I agree, it's not lowering the bar if you take care of providing that support and growing the people. Otherwise, you are lowering the bar. If you just relax and don't do anything,
then you are, because then
you are
lowering the bar. Exactly.
Exactly.
But,
that is a fair
I
point.
think with kind of we may go into another kind of conversation, but I think in most cases, like if you are concentrating on one thing, like people were doing technology, they were not concentrating on other skills like cultural fit and so on often, right? You kind of put a lot more emphasis on like the technology, the hard skills and so on. And so in a way, the bar was lower earlier than it is now. So certain things like the attitudes would you'd kind of pass that by. Or this person doesn't look like a great team player, but they have these skills, these specific technology,
Dr.
this
House
kind of thing.
is really good, but he's a jerk. No.
Yeah, exactly. And
like,
in a way,
nobody wants to work with him.
That is a low
really
bar.
Good.
That is a low bar.
I like that. Like, I haven't thought about this way, but like this is a very good food for thought for us to finish, because this is a very good point, Mesh. How often have we seen environments that they were not pleasant to work with, but the individuals working in their environment, they have the right technical skills or hard skills to do their job individually, but collectively that was not a great bar and a great environment. And then you can ask, like, which bar was lower, and that's I think this is a great way for us to finish this episode, because a very good food for thought in there. So as always, like, if you enjoyed this chat, like, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and let us know your thoughts about this episode. If there is anything you'd like us to discuss, we'll be more than happy to take your suggestions. All right, see you next time.
Don't forget to subscribe so that you get notifications. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.